right. Hey, good morning, folks. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Friday, August 2nd, 2024. This is your morning update on newly minted Invest 97L. Our tropical wave we've been following for the last several days. It has made it off the island of Hispaniola and is now taking its time moving through eastern Cuba this morning on its trek to the Gulf of Mexico. Our wave is located here this morning. Nice broad cyclonic rotation, but not a lot going on just yet, although it does look like as this moves away from Cuba, it will quickly be able to become a tropical depression or a tropical storm as it moves into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. So the name of the game over the last 2 days has been rapid forecast changes, and thankfully we do have some more today, but it looks like better news, not amazing news, but at least better news. And we have a bit more confidence and clarity on the general track this is going to take, although the specifics will matter. And what exactly sets up will determine who gets what kind of rain and winds. But we have at least hopefully some general ballpark of what this is going to do. So let's get into it this morning. National Hurricane Center's map as of 7:37 a.m. They are now having this up to a 90% chance of development, 60% in the next 48 hours. It's happening sooner than later. Hurricane hunters from NOAA will be out there this afternoon to fly around what they can. It's partially over land. They won't get a full look at the storm, but they'll at least send something. And I'm sure our boys over here in the Air Force Reserve will get out there over the weekend as well to check this thing out as it moves along. But this is the latest forecast model suite this morning. I'm going to start with this because it represents the change over the last day or so, which is that confidence has come back up that this is probably not going to fully stall. If you remember yesterday's video, we were talking about the potential for this to come off Cuba, move up into the Gulf, and then stall somewhere around the Big Bend and meander or wander to the west, wander to the east, loop back around, do all this crazy stuff. Well, we're not seeing that quote-unquote squish spider look anymore. We have a definite hook in direction, which means the models are now thinking that little trough that's going to be coming across the eastern U.S. will be strong enough to coax the storm northward and then recurve it over Florida. Now, it's not as black and white as, okay, well, it moves over Florida and we're all good, because the potential trajectories matter a lot. If you look at the left side of this cone, see how far out some of these models swing. They go all the way towards Apalachicola, and then some models take it and run it almost directly into Florida. Now, notice the difference in length here, how far that goes and how far that goes. So there's still a lot of potential for this to spend time over water, and it's not something we want right now. The waters over the Gulf of Mexico are quite warm, and this storm's not going to have a lot of wind shear or other factors to slow it down. No dry air, no wind shear. The only thing that's going to slow this thing down is land. So the solutions that come out further to the west are still noteworthy and could mean different outcomes than the ones that move it closer to the coast sooner than later. So let's go ahead and take a look at what this might look like after we take a look at the storm generally real quick. Satellite presentation this morning over on Tropical Tidbits showing us a broad cyclonic rotation. And one thing I want to note about this storm before we move on, I'm not going to spend a ton of time in the weeds this morning, but the circulation of this storm is fairly broad. This is a big wave. This was a big wave as it was coming across the Atlantic, and it had the smaller wave, and then it had the bigger one that kind of took it over, and it's a broad envelope. And I want to point that out early, because when we're talking about these systems, small storms can spin up faster, but also weaken faster. But bigger storms have the potential to touch more water, and the more water that circulation can touch, the more moisture it can pull into it. So even if it's not particularly strong, if it's still casting a wide net, it can pull a lot of moisture in, and it could bring a lot of rainfall towards Florida, even if it's not particularly strong. So I want to still harp that even though the threat of the stall is less, therefore the threat of some apocalyptic record-breaking kind of rainfall might be coming off the table for the most part. It's still going to bring a tremendous amount of rain, and this is going to be a serious issue for Florida, given that it's been raining all summer, and drainages are likely full, and soils are probably already wet. So there's some things to consider here, but that's the biggest thing I want to tell you, as far as this goes. If this wasn't sitting directly over Cuba, it would probably already be a tropical depression or tropical storm. But as it stands right now, I think that sooner than later, the Hurricane Center is going to get this named probably as a potential tropical cyclone and set their watches and warnings accordingly. But we'll talk about that towards the end. So show you the latest GFS and European models. Both models bring this off the coast of Cuba sometime Saturday early afternoon, probably around 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. or so, and bring it near the Florida Keys throughout the Saturday afternoon time frame and into Sunday. Now, again, I want to show you the differences here on the GFS in Europe, because this is what we're still micromanaging. Notice how the GFS comes off, and it's already kind of centered very close to the Keys, and it doesn't stay over the water long. It basically, by Sunday morning, 12Z is 7 a.m. local time, it's already moved into Tampa, Florida. Now, contrast that with the European model, who at 3Z on Monday, which is late Sunday night, like 10 o'clock Sunday night, or 11 o'clock, I guess, it's moved into the Big Bend to Florida. Now, the models have the intensity backwards. The European should be stronger, the GFS should be weaker, but of course they're doing their own thing. But again, it's that theory of, okay, we know, say this is the point it comes off no matter what, right? The difference in it going here or all the way out in here is a big difference. This third one right here is the potential for a stronger storm. The less time it has over water, the less time it has to organize, and then, vice versa. So the other thing we talk about is intensity, and thankfully the opening suite of our HWRF, HFAS, and HMON, our three regional computer models that are storm specific, the HWRF and whatnot only run when they have a storm to follow. And since it's an invest now, we actually have these models running. Their opening bids are not horrifying, which is good news. They all are forecasting a fairly strong tropical storm, and again, a big, strong tropical storm. So definitely don't want to discount the potential there, but HWRF brings it into Tampa, 993 millibars, strong tropical storm. That is a landfall about mid-morning on Sunday. HFAS A brings us up towards the Big Bend and landfalls it again all the way into Monday morning. This is about 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 5 a.m. or so on Monday morning. 996, fairly sloppy and lopsided. And then the HMON is the fastest with getting it back over land, bringing it somewhere near Naples at about 998. So the good news is that 996, 993, 998, none of those are like serious hurricane intensities. And that is good news that we probably won't have a massive wind and surge threat with this one, although the surge will probably be higher than a typical tropical storm. It won't be, like world-ending type surge. But we are still looking at the potential for some pretty heavy rain, and that's kind of the bigger issue here. So we look at the potential for rainfall. The thing that basically comes down to is where this comes in. Remember, the GFS brought this in around Tampa. We're here on Pivotal Weather. We're showing you the rainfall totals through the end of next week, and the GFS brings us in around Tampa and moves it something like this. Well, look at where all the heaviest rain is, to the east of the center of the track. So wherever this decides to come in, whether it's Naples, whether it's Tampa, whether it's the Big Bend or something in between, to the east of wherever these tracks are is who's going to get the most rainfall. And that's kind of what I want to stress. But where I take and move that track can matter a lot. Like, say, for example, you live in Jacksonville. Well, if the track comes in like this, all this rain you see here is going to be on top of you. If I drag the track, over Orlando, then the heaviest rain's to the east of that, and then you are on the good side of the storm, and you only get, like this shows here, 2 inches of rain, maybe 3 or 4 inches of rain, no big deal. But if I take this and look at a different solution, like maybe say the blended solution from the QPF prediction from WPC, oh no, now we're back to 4 to 6 inches of rain, possibly higher. The WPC prediction looks like it's probably showing something like this, which would then put you guys back on that eastern side of the storm. And again, just looking at the basic structure of the storm, it's the HWRF, how there's drier, lighter colors on this side of the storm, and there's heavier greens on this side of the storm. Any hurricane is going to be a little more weighted, or tropical storm is going to be a little more weighted to the east side, because that's where all the warm, moist air is coming in from, and then the drier side is pulling in drier air from the west. But again, where all those greens are is where the heaviest rain falls. So if it comes up like that, everyone on this side gets a lot more rain, and then everyone on the other side doesn't. Like if I circle this here, and then I turn off my mouse, and then I just back this up, notice who's in that heavier rain band the whole time. So there are details like that to be worked out, but here's what this looks like. The Hurricane Center is very likely going to tag this as a potential tropical cyclone at 11 a.m. or 5 p.m. From there, they're going to set tropical storm watches for much of the southwest Florida coast, and they will probably spread up the Florida coast throughout tonight, and then they will probably be issued for the east coast of Florida not long after that, probably early Saturday morning. The storm is going to leave Cuba sometime early Saturday morning, and by Saturday afternoon to Saturday evening, it will probably become a full-fledged tropical depression or tropical storm, which will be Dolly, or Debbie. I keep messing that up. It's Debbie, not Dolly. And then it will be moving into western Florida, somewhere from Naples to the Big Bend, either early Sunday morning or late Sunday night, depending on how far north it wants to track. Again, Sunday morning if it's further south, Sunday night if it's further north. And then heavy rainfall will begin to overspread Florida on Saturday. It will continue through Sunday and likely through Monday as well. It's going to be a very wet weekend, and a lot of folks can be expecting definitely heavy rainfall, some wind impacts, and the potential for flooding rainfall. So that's kind of what I got for you guys this morning until we get the first forecast cone and get a little more detail. I don't want to go into much more detail than that, but if you live in Florida and you're not in, like, say, Pensacola, you need to be preparing for a tropical storm at least. And if you're along the west coast of Florida, specifically from about Naples through Tampa to about the Big Bend, maybe even Apalachicola, you need to still be preparing for the potential of a hurricane, because that cannot be ruled out of the table just yet. So that's what I got for you guys this morning on the update. I am back to days. I will have much more time to track all this. I'm going to bed early tonight to get ready for the weekend, but I will be very available this weekend. So we'll have more updates. If you got any questions, shoot me a message on Facebook, and we will track this as it comes, and we'll have plenty of updates between now and then. So that's what I got for you guys today. As always, thanks for watching, and have a good one.